Perhaps as old as war itself is the story of a field commander reaching headquarters and being confronted with plans and machinations running completely contrary to his understanding and instincts. Many a capable general has been frustrated by the meddling of paper pushers and desk warriors who believe they know better, even though they've never seen the situation up close, maybe never even seen a battlefield. Today, however, there is one important addition to that story. For the commander is Erwin Rommel, the desert fox, and foxes are known to be cunning and practical. They judge by what works, not by what is written. I'm Indy Neidell, and welcome back to this most excellent North Africa miniseries. Last week, we saw German units struggle with the desert's unfamiliar hostility, and the British got an edge from their superior decryption work at Bletchley Park. Whenever the Luftwaffe sends anything across the airwaves, the Brits are listening in. On the ground, the Germans took the Marada Oasis, and Operation Graf Schwerin headed south to deal with the advances of the Free French. Unlike last week, this week brings frantic activity on the ground on both sides. And also, unlike last week, this week we begin not on the ground in the deserts of North Africa, but inside the offices of Wehrmacht High Command in the German capital of Berlin. Rommel arrives there on the 19th as the week begins, and is scheduled to meet a who's who of the Nazi war machine. Adolf Hitler himself, Commander-in-Chief of the Army Walter von Brauchitsch, and Army Chief of Staff Franz Halder. The meeting is not what Rommel has wanted, far from it. Yet it begins promisingly. Hitler, once more honoring Rommel's achievements during the Battle of France as commander of the 7th Panzer Division, awards Rommel the oak leaves to his Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross. This is where the pleasantries end, though. Rommel has communicated that he believes he needs more force to push the British out of Africa, and wants to do so as soon as possible. He underlines his claims with the firm conviction that British strength on the ground is far below Wehrmacht estimates. Yet he is denied. As he notes in his diary, the commander-in-chief of the army, von Brauchitsch, informed me there was no intention of striking a decisive blow in Africa in the near future, and that for the present I could expect no reinforcements. After the arrival of the 15th Panzer Division at the end of May, I was to attack and destroy the enemy round Agheila. Benghazi might perhaps be taken. Rommel says capturing just Benghazi is nonsensical other than out of some ill-conceived sense of pride, since it could not be held by itself and is surrounded by unforgiving open terrain. To no avail. I was not very happy to leave the future of this theater of war to chance. The momentary British weakness in North Africa should have been exploited with the utmost energy in order to gain the initiative once and for all for ourselves. In the end, there is nothing Rommel can do other than accept the situation. As for why Hitler refuses to commit more troops or launch an immediate offensive, well, Hitler's been pretty clear from the beginning. He does not care much about Africa in general. He only sent troops there to support the faltering Italy. His attention is fully on the upcoming German attack on Greece and on Operation Barbarossa, the massive assault on the Soviet Union after that. Beyond those, Hitler's attention and military resources are stretched very thin. That same day, the 19th, on the other side of the Mediterranean in Cairo, Archie Wavell, British Middle East theater commander, is also having a bad day. Well, everything began 2 days ago, actually, when Wavell met General Philip Nehm, the replacement for Richard O'Connor, who had expertly led the Western Desert Force to triumph during Operation Compass. Wavell was shocked at what he found. I came back anxious and depressed from this visit. The movement to Greece was in full swing, and I had nothing left in the bag. But I had forebodings, and my confidence in Nehm was shaken. He takes issue with Nehm's pessimistic attitude and his faulty tactical understanding of the situation. It is not only Nehm that shocks Wavell, though. Another thing is the dire state of the vehicles of the 2nd Armored Brigade, which in theory is the backbone of the forces guarding their western flank. So, in addition to the oral instructions given to Nehm on the 17th, on the 19th, Wavell further issues written guidelines. The safeguarding of your forces is of much greater importance than the retention of ground. The reoccupation of Benghazi by the enemy, though it would have considerable propaganda and prestige value, would be of little military importance, and it is certainly not worthwhile risking defeat to retain it. Here, both Wavell and Rommel agree. Benghazi is no prize in and of itself. The consequence of all this for Wavell is that, should the enemy attack, the only viable course of action would be to conduct a delaying action, trading space for time to scramble an adequate response. But that's not all the bad news Wavell has to deal with. On the 19th, he receives ultra information. I talked about how this came to be last time, so I won't go into it again. But this is information taken straight from the Luftwaffe Enigma transmissions. In the intelligence, Wavell finds a truly troubling detail. All Luftwaffe personnel in North Africa are now prohibited from going on leave and are awaiting detailed orders. Orders for what? Wavell, now even more unsettled, asks himself. Then, the next day, yet more troublesome intel reaches headquarters Middle East. Another ultra message reveals the Luftwaffe is planning to conduct extensive reconnaissance over the British forward positions. In response, Wavell sends a cable to the British War Office in Whitehall. Growing enemy strength may indicate early forward movement. If our advanced troops are driven from present positions, there is no good covering position south of Benghazi, as country is dead level plain. Once more, Wavell and Rommel agree about Benghazi. This is also first-hand evidence of how useful the direct ultra link is as Wavell begins to better understand what is brewing on the German side. The final part of his memo to Whitehall explains, however, that because of the administrative and logistical problems the Germans are facing, he feels only a limited advance could be expected by them in the immediate future. While Rommel is making his way back from Berlin and Wavell is anxiously waiting in Cairo, time does not stop on the ground in North Africa. Here, the week begins as most others have lately, with more German troops landing at the port of Tripoli. From the 19th to the 23rd, the remnants of the 5th Light Division reach their destination. Remnants such as the 1st Battery of the 75th Artillery Regiment and its 1st Signal Company, or parts of Panzerjäger Battalion 605. What is important is that by now, almost all of the units on the ground have reached the zone of operations, like the 1st and 2nd Battalions of the 5th Panzer Regiment. The Italian Ariete Tank Division has also received its battalion of new M1340 Italian medium tanks. The Italian Brescia Infantry Division arrives at the northern sector edge at Sebsha el Chebira, relieving the 39th Tank Hunter Battalion for other duties. In the air, on the 20th and 21st, Commonwealth Airmen are confronted with a frightening rumor making the rounds. On both days, the crew of a Blenheim belonging to 55 Squadron reports spotting a Bf-109 in the skies of North Africa. This is extremely unlikely since Jagdgeschwader 27 has not arrived yet, but real or imagined, it doesn't matter. The effect is very real. RAF and RAAF pilots now have to accept that sooner or later they could encounter the most capable German fighter here. Both air forces are busy. They both conduct multiple bombing runs. Tripoli is bombed several times. The Italians and the Germans return the favor by bombing the port of Benghazi. The British also bombed the Africa Corps Command headquarters at Sirte, hitting a field hospital in the process, causing 2 German casualties. However, bombing runs are not the only thing they're up to. Both air forces also engage in ground attacks. German planes strafe Commonwealth columns east of Mersa Brega on the 22nd, and Commonwealth planes attack the Axis contingents in the oasis of Marada the same day. While Rommel is away, there is also the culmination of a months-long siege, resulting in an Allied, or more specifically Australian, victory. The oasis of Giarabub has been the last major Libyan oasis in Italian hands. Giarabub is closer to Siva in Egypt than to the current Italian and German positions, though. It's just like 65 kilometers from the Egyptian border. The oasis is heavily fortified, and Major Salvatore Castagna has 2,000 men at his disposal to hold it until the Italians hopefully manage to send in reinforcements. Since last December, Castagna and his men have been doing just that, fighting off B Squadron 6th Divisional Cavalry Regiment Australian Imperial Force. Since January 21st, when Tobruk fell, to O'Connor's Western Desert Force during Operation Compass. The situation of the Italians stationed there has but worsened. By early March, Castagna's fighting strength is down to around 1,500. Yet these remaining men cling to hopes of relief or victory. As one Italian POW tells the Australians on the 1st of March, as the daily rations have been reduced to 1 biscuit and 1 small tin of bully beef, there is no talk of surrender, the commandant spurring them on to fight to the end. The stalemate continues over the first 2 weeks of March, but things now change. George Wooten, commander of the 18th Australian Brigade, has arrived to finish the job. Wooten is on a pretty strict timetable. His unit is to head for Greece and is expected back in Alexandria in 10 days. What's more, they cannot count on any air or armored support since there is not a single plane or tank to spare. Well, the Australians make their opening move the 19th, securing strategic positions for the upcoming main assault. That night at 2 a.m., the Italians manage a local counterattack, killing 1 soldier and wounding 7 more, although this is too little, too late. Starved of food and ammunition, they cannot put up a proper fight. At 5:15 a.m. on the 21st, in the midst of a fierce sandstorm, the main assault commences. By midday, the Australian flag is flying above the fort, and the nearby airfield has also been taken. All told, 17 Australian and just under 250 Italian soldiers pay the ultimate price, with 77 Australians wounded and some 1,300 Italian POWs taken. This is the first victory of Commonwealth ground forces in North Africa since Operation Compass ground to its halt last month. Late at night on the 23rd, Rommel returns to Africa. Remember, before he left, he gave instructions to General Streich, commander of the 5th Light Division, to prepare a push towards the British forward positions at El Agheila. This violates the spirit of Rommel's orders from Hitler, though technically is allowed. In the early morning hours of the 24th, 3rd Recon makes its move with motorcycles, about 20 tanks, armored cars, and some artillery. As they advance from Casa Ritorno along the Via Balbia, the coastal road connecting Tripoli and Benghazi, the Germans don't know exactly what to expect. Something that certainly is not on their bingo card is that they will find an abandoned position. Approaching the fort, the gateway between Tripolitania and Cyrenaica and its nearby defile, which is ideal for a defensive stand, they find no British soldiers. Well, sure, the Germans have noticed that the British have begun retreating and consolidating their forces around Mersa Brega. This is unusual. Why would they just give up this strategically important position, including an airstrip and a well? It turns out the British have not decided to abandon the position. Well, sort of, and then again, not really. Confusing, right? I suppose an apt way of describing it would be selective abandonment. Let me explain. Scouting and screening no man's land, with the fort at El Agheila perched right on its edge, is the job of the 1st King's Dragoon Guards, an armored car regiment. Stationed like 3 kilometers east of Mersa Brega, they also have with them some anti-aircraft and anti-tank guns. Typically, 2 patrols are deployed, a northern one in the El Agheila area and a southern one around Mott and Diofer, each made up of an armored car and an anti-tank gun. What the Dragoons do not have is an infantry contingent, which makes them think that staying at the fort overnight would leave them too exposed. Until the 20th, the routine was for the guards to creep up to the fort in their Marmon Harrington armored car at first light and take up positions on the surrounding hills, then return to their headquarters at Mersa Brega at dusk. A somewhat risky stance since, the enemy could attack at night, right? An assessment shared by British command, which is why, on the 20th, the decision is made to deploy a platoon of the 1st Tower Hamlets Rifles, led by Lieutenant Cope, to guard the fort at night. Cope, however, once he surveys the area, recommends a different plan of action. He believes that the patrol should be stationed south of the fort to prevent the enemy's approach from that direction. The higher-ups say, okay, do that then. So Cope takes his platoon there the night of the 21st. Then, though, the Dragoons and the Hamlets come up with another idea. The terrain west of the fort, flanking the defile, is perfectly suited for an ambush, so why not prepare one? Good plan, say the higher-ups, and the ambush is to be set up the morning of the 24th. Towards this end, Two groups from the 1st King's Dragoon Guards, each a small armored car detachment, some 30 men and a few anti-tank guns, are to cooperate with Cope. So the night from the 23rd to the 24th, these guys spend the night roughly 1 kilometer west of the fort, ready to set up the ambush the next morning. This, my friends, is what one calls bad timing. Around 6 a.m., Cope is supposed to scout the fort, signal it clear, and then the rest of the men are to pull up. Cope does as he is ordered, and together with some dragoons under a Lieutenant Williams, drives up to the fort. Still a little ways away, Cope dismounts and continues on foot. Then he suddenly stops. C Squadron's diarist describes what follows. He shot to and ran for his life, reaching his truck to get away in a hail of bullets. Before Williams can process what has just happened, he spots tanks approaching from the south, and then his car comes under fire from artillery close to the fort. Now he realizes the fort is not clear. However, this is not Williams' first rodeo, so he reacts quickly. He pulls his armored car behind a mound and waits. Then a German armored car tops the rise straight ahead. Good thing Williams has the one self-propelled anti-tank gun with him, ready and waiting. In a flash, the enemy car is split open. But the Australian gunner is killed by small arms fire from the Germans. Williams knows he needs to pull back, especially when a report comes in from another dragoon troop that some 10 tanks and 20 armored vehicles have been spotted east of the fort as well. The Commonwealth troops have to accept that the fort of Agheila, the airstrip, and the well are, for now, in German hands. As the diarist of the First Tower Hamlet sardonically records, this rather altered arrangements. And he is correct. British command promptly reacts. The next day, the Middle East Joint Planning Staff issues a new immediate policy on Cyrenaica. They estimate that within the next 2 to 3 weeks, the Germans will enjoy a numerical advantage. However, much as we've seen in recent weeks, the British again choose to downplay the situation, saying that should be set against Rommel's lack of experience in desert conditions. Rommel's unexpected push does, though, give them a dose of reality, since the report ends with, "Our policy hitherto has been to accept risks in Cyrenaica in order to assist Greece. But the stage has now been reached when, by continuing this policy, we court disaster in both." Rommel is continuing to make new plans. He knows that, according to his orders, he should wait until May and the arrival of the 15th Panzer Division to push further. But he thinks that would be a serious error. If the British are given time to entrench, wire, and mine their positions at Mersa Brega, the beefed-up defenses will make it far harder to assault or outflank. I was therefore faced with the choice of either waiting, giving the British time to construct strong defenses, or of going ahead with our existing small forces to attack and take the Mersa Brega position in its present undeveloped state. I decided for the latter. A further argument in favor of an immediate move was that our water supply had recently been so bad it was essential to open up new wells. An operation against Mersa Brega would give us access to plentiful water-bearing land. So Rommel has made his call. He will push on before May, against Hitler's wishes. And here, I shall leave you for this week, with Giarabub in Australian hands, Agheila in German ones, and Wavell wondering what in the world those Germans are really up to. Next week, according to Rommel at least, we will witness the German assault on the British position at Mersa Brega. Should it fall, it could open the floodgates for Rommel's Africa Corps to push on towards Benghazi, maybe further. How might the British react? For while they seem to be at least somewhat aware that something is coming, they have unquestionably underestimated and continue to underestimate Erwin Rommel. And what about Hitler? How will he react to Rommel disobeying him? I suppose that depends entirely on whether Rommel's push is a success or a failure. You'd have to have some real balls to risk Hitler's displeasure, and it seems that Erwin Rommel very much has them. We are only able to do series like this, well, to produce all our series, thanks to the Time Ghost Army. It is the army that allows us to keep World War II history alive, like shining the light on some of North Africa's often neglected battles. To become a part of this mission, join the army at timeghost.tv or patreon.com. These are the newest commissioned officers, and Dennis Anthony Zaluski is the Army Member of the Week for this channel. Do not forget to subscribe. See you next time.